Okay, huge news in the comic book industry as Diamond Comics distributors filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, as I understand it, Chapter 11 is the one where you're looking for buyers. You're ready to cash out. You're done. It's not like, what is it, Chapter 13, maybe, where you get to reorganize. I'm not even sure, but seems like things are pretty dire over there, which is amazing when you consider the 25-year run of comics dominance that Diamond had. It's a time, 1995 to 2025, that I'd like to call the Diamond Age of comics. And you can't talk about Diamond comic distributors without talking about a guy named Steve Jeppy. And fair notice, Steve is a friend of mine, mostly because he appeared on my channel and I interviewed him early into the pandemic. And it was that interview that gave me enough subscribers to finally be monetized, and I'll always owe him a debt for that. But if you don't know Steve Jeppy is a really wealthy man from being the undisputed king of comics for 25 years. And, from 1995 to 2025, Diamond had an actual, genuine, legitimate monopoly on distribution of comic book periodicals to North America. And they were investigated for this by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and they came out smelling like a rose. While it was deemed that they were indeed a monopoly and that the exclusive arrangements they had with publishers were monopolistic, it was deemed that without them, comic book publishing might not still exist, right? They were deemed to be a beneficial monopoly, if you can believe that. But if you know Steve Jeppy, you would understand why such an unusual thing could be, right? So I interviewed Steve and we've talked a lot. And you can watch my videos and interviews with him where we go over the rise of Diamond. But in a nutshell, Steve started as a mailman from pretty humble beginnings, quit his job as a mailman to get into comics. Really loved old comics, Golden Age comics. A particular fan of the works of Karl Barks, but just a humongous fan of comics in general, and had his own comic book store in the Baltimore area. Over time, expanded that into comic book distribution. He was able to order enough new comics to pull people in to sell his old comics. That was really his mentality. He was an old comics guy. It was an old school comic shop. It was all about the collectible value of these things, but also that would never have existed without the love of the material, which Steve absolutely has. Like, he's a fan's fan. There's museums full of parts of his collection out there. He's the part owner of the Baltimore Orioles, and there's a Smithsonian wing of all of his collection of stuff. And the guy's just like a compulsive collector for his entire life. And by the 80s, had been able to turn that into a regional distributorship. Like, he had most of the East Coast sewn up for distributing comic books to the burgeoning direct market, like the new comic shops that were coming up and ordering stuff on a non-returnable basis. So, his distributorship was doing well, and then everything was chugging along. There were multiple distributors, including Capital, Cap Cities, and I forget the names of the other ones, to tell you the truth, but there were multiple ones to choose from. And comic shops in that era, when I was working at the comic shop, had choices. Like, if Diamond was out, you could go to Cap Cities and you could get one, and they all had like regional warehouses all over the country, and things were hopping. You had sources, you had alternatives. Okay, but in 1995, a huge bomb dropped, And that was Marvel Comics announcing the purchase of Heroes World Distribution, that they were going to take on and become the exclusive distributor of their own comics, Marvel Comics, which were the hottest comics in the direct market. They sold more than DC. This was a titanic shift in the distribution market that led to Steve, Jeppy, and Diamond negotiating with the remaining publishers, right? They got on board with DC and got DC to agree to go exclusive with Diamond. Doing this meant DC had to take their business away from Cap Cities and the other distributors, ensuring that if those ones lost Marvel and DC, they were going to go down. So this caused rapid consolidation in the comic book distribution industry to the point where there was only one viable player. That was Diamond Comics. This is the beginning of the Diamond Age of comics, right? Where Steve Jeppy was undoubtedly the most powerful man in the industry, right? I know Jack Kirby's the king of comics, but if we want to talk about the king of the comic book industry, Kirby was the king of the art, maybe, but Jeppy was the king of the industry. Thing is, he was a benevolent dictator. Diamond could have easily squeezed out any shop that was a moment late on their payments, but they are well known by many retailers who I know, who have talked about it openly, so I think it's okay to discuss. Diamond helped float those stores in times when they were in humongous debt. Now, don't get me wrong, they got interest out of it for those that eventually paid them back, like Chuck Rosansky at Mile High Comics, but a lot of shops went under, probably owing Diamond quite a bit of money. But I personally know of guys who were so behind on their Diamond bills, but because they had been open for so long and had been had such a track record with Diamond and Steve, they would go to bat for them. They would loan them money when others would not, essentially, by sending them more product to sell so they could earn the money to pay them back. And I know it saved more than one shop. Not mine. I tried not to order more than I can sell, and granted, I was not a runaway success as a retailer or anything, but I know that Diamond was always really good. And especially with me, I knew from my own service rep that I was one of the few people, if not the only person of his accounts, that paid their bill 100% on time and was never late with payment. I'm not saying that to brag. That might actually be why I wasn't able to grow as much as I want. I didn't really take risks in that way, but whatever. So how do we get from this position of dominance to bankruptcy today? Well, I got one word for you, baby. It changed the whole universe. It was the apocalypse, COVID. So during COVID, by the time of COVID, in 2020, let's say, DC's exclusive contract with Diamond had expired. So they were sort of on like a month-to-month contract, basically, with them from that point. So they could, pull out of their deal at any time, but there was no indication that there was any plan to do that. In fact, but what happened was, during the pandemic, Diamond had to shut down distribution. They like everybody, didn't know what to do, closed down their shops. Books were not getting out of the shops. It caused a backup from books that we wanted to get from the printer, already in the pipeline, out into comic shops. This was a big deal for a lot of people. A lot of shops and a lot of publishers were losing money because Diamond kind of shut down. What is he going to do? What are they going to do? Put all of the comics packers at risk so people can get their funny books in the middle of this global pandemic we had never seen the likes of before? So it's really tough to cast blame. Except what happened at that moment is whoever was in charge of making this decision over at Warner Brothers, I don't know that it was somebody within DC Comics or higher above them, made the decision that this was the time, now was the moment to break the exclusive contract with Diamond. Okay, this caused DC to break loose from Diamond, setting off a chain reaction that had DC went to Penguin Random House, another huge corporation, And this started a chain effect where Marvel then jumped ship, and then it all broke loose in Dark Horse and Boom, and so many different players in the publishing industry, comics publishing industry, were moving around. Image was one of the last holdouts over there at Diamond. They had to make the move too for whatever reason, right? We know the reasons are always financially driven. Money is the gravity of our universe. Um, and Diamond was limping along, and some said the writing was on the wall, but I didn't hear anybody saying it was this imminent. Maybe I'm out of the industry. I haven't been keeping my ear open on the street or whatever. I don't know. We got one comic shop that I know of within 50 miles of where I'm at. So, and I hardly ever go to it. And I should. But now without Diamond, I think the biggest negative effect in the short term is going to be the small, tiny publishers that did remain at Diamond, like the truly indie guys, the Atlantic Press and the Cosmic Lions and so many little guys that put out one or two comics. They have stock in Diamond warehouses, like comics sitting there, and they're owed money by Diamond on invoices. I'm willing to bet they're going to be last in line after the Marvels, DCs, Hasbros, etc. Because Diamond has been being forced here. I really thought it was separate companies under a holding company, and that like Diamond would be siloed, and them going bankrupt didn't mean Alliance Games was on the table, but Alliance Games is being sold off. The Universal distributors from Canada are trying to step in and looking at the possibility of buying them and becoming picking up Diamond's business. But based on the business that they have left, it may or may not even be worth, there might not be enough juice to be worth the squeeze, so to speak. So what's going to happen next is anybody's guess. Here's what I do know. Knowing what I know about Steve Jeppy, he's going to be just fine. And you never know. Even a guy at his advanced age and after so many things, there might be a comeback in the works from his family or somebody else over there at Jeppy. I hope so. I hope we haven't seen the last of him, because for everybody who wanted to complain about Diamond and their service and them being a monopoly, there are many people who actually own comic shops and worked with Diamond in many ways, including guys like Joe Field over in Concord, Flying Colors Comics. He's the creator of Free Comic Book Day, and he brought that idea to Diamond, and they helped make it a reality. And 25 years later, it's still going. And I don't think losing Diamond is not going to get rid of Free Comic Book Day, because frankly, they didn't do that much. They were they helped get some marketing materials out there a little bit. Their comic book shop locator service that they charged for, mind you, probably helped a little bit. I never thought they did as much as they could to enable retailers, especially digitally and their digital tools. But I do know that they had a lot on their plate, and they had a lot of people owing them a lot of money. And the chickens have come home to roost. The Diamond age of comics is over, and the new age has begun. Will this spell the end of the direct market distribution of pamphlet comics? No, not in the short term. But who knows? The entire publishing game, especially the game of publishing comics, has changed dramatically. There's a lot of direct-to-consumer going on. I think the future of being a comic book store is going to be having a lot of sources for comics again, many different distributors for different publishers, and that's what we always said we wanted. So be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Diamond being out of business is going to be a curse and a blessing in many ways. We'll see which it's more of. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what I could be doing better, what I could be doing worse. But either way, thanks for engaging. It really helps with the YouTube algorithmic gods. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.